free. When black people get free, everybody gets free. Black lives matter, period. And so I would yield to any of my colleagues on the Republican side who can unequivocally say, as we calibrate where we are right now, that black lives matter.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. Does the gentleman believe that all lives matter as well? I think black lives matter. I think all lives matter.
Reclaiming my time. Can anyone on the Republican side say unequivocally black lives matter?
Unequivocally, all lives matter. Why is that a problem to acknowledge?
Reclaiming my time. I think it's clear that my colleagues on the other side would like to put up a straw man to not have the uncomfortable conversation that we need to have about race. Typically, in police shootings, most of the focus is on the conduct of the officer, and we never get to the harder part about the systemic issues we have in our country. Nobody is disputing that what the officer did here with Mr. Floyd should be defended. So we have to have the harder conversation about systemic issues and policing. Instead, we get this straw man of, well, you're trying to defund the police. Nowhere in this legislation is anyone seeking to defund the police. So until you're willing to get rid of the straw man, get rid of the confusion, get rid of all of the different tactics you're using to avoid the hard conversation about race in America, we are not going to get where we need to be to have equality, not just in policing, but in healthcare, in jobs, in education.
Will the gentleman
Black lives matter. I'm sad to say no one on the other side
black lives do matter unequivocally. Black lives do matter.
I'll yield to Mr.
Every life is precious, God-given, and black lives matter unequivocally. Every life is important.
Thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the gentleman from North Dakota's amendment. It's a good amendment. And the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates, is right on target. Cops wear body cams, but the FBI agent interviewing a 3-star general doesn't have to record that conversation? That makes no sense, especially when you know the facts around that conversation that took place. Remember, in January of 2017, January 4th, 2017, the agents on the Michael Flynn case, 3-star general, served our country for over 30 years. The agents on the case said, we want to drop this case. There's nothing here. They didn't want to pursue it. But what happened? The director of the FBI told Peter Strzok to tell the agents, no, 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 don't drop the case. We're going after Michael Flynn. The next day, January 5th, 2017, Jim Comey meets with then President Obama and talks about Michael Flynn. And what happens 19 days later? What happens 19 days later? These agents, not my words, Jim Comey's words, these agents are snuck into the White House. Mr. Comey doesn't follow the proper protocols, the proper process. He doesn't notify the White House counsel. He sneaks them in to set up Michael Flynn. And there's no recording of that interview. There's the 302 notes. And guess what they do with the notes? They change them months later and prosecute a general, prosecute an American citizen based on that. And all the gentleman's asking is, let's fix that. Let's at least have the audio recording of that conversation that took place. And the Democrats say, we need to study it. What? Let's just pass it. That is as Mr. Gates said, let's get with the times. Let's get with the times. We're doing a virtual hearing. We can't even see half the Democrats who are supposed to be on the screen participating. We can't even see that. But somehow the FBI can interview people, American citizens, charge them with something that turns out not to be a crime. We know there was nothing there because the Justice Department said there's nothing there. They're dropping the case. And you guys want to study making an audio recording of those type of interviews. This is as basic and simple and straightforward as it gets. The gentleman from North Dakota knows what he's talking about. He has worked in this area. So let's adopt this amendment, common sense, thoughtful, good amendment that needs to happen, particularly in light of what we have lived through the last 3 years, what we have now learned took place. This is as straightforward as it gets. And I would urge adoption of the amendment. I'm happy to yield the remaining 2 minutes to my colleague from Florida if he still seeks some time.
I thank the gentleman. I would just comment that in the effort that we're here on to offer amendments like the gentleman from North Dakota that would apply to all Americans equally, as we're here to craft legislation, like the theatrics of serving us up the question on a political theme seem to be a bit misplaced. I mean, it would be as if I were willing to yield to any Democrat willing to say that blue lives matter, right? Not super productive. So I think if we acknowledge that all lives matter, that there are definitely problems in our society that we have to solve, that Congresswoman Bass has put together some very compelling ideas that we should evaluate in good faith, that the president has already acted on some of Congresswoman Bass's ideas and by trying to get to the root of these challenges and these problems. I hope that that would be the way we would continue the hearing. I yield back to the gentleman from Ohio.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Ms. Jayapal.